I'd like to kick us off with a preview of our experts that we have today. So, One Goal is grateful to be able to work with some incredible individuals. We've got Arthur Holman, who you'll see on the screen, much more impressive beard than mine as well. I have beard envy right now, but he is the college and career specialist at Northbrook High School in Spring Branch ISD down in Houston, um, and uh, and actually, we have a really cool case study on our website about One Goal's work with Northbrook. If it's easy, I'm wondering if our friend Becky, working in the background, could pull a link and share that. But really awesome work that's happening at Northbrook. And then we've got Kiana Sanders, who is my colleague and the Senior Director of Post-Secondary Success for One Goal, also down in Texas, working with our school partners down in Texas. And hopefully, we've got Journey joining us. It looks like she's clocking out of work right now and headed home. She's going to join us. So it's going to be one of those, swooping in at the end. I'm really excited for everyone here to get to meet Journey. I had a really fun conversation with her leading up to this, and you know what? The kids are all right. Journey's really just so impressive, and I love her energy. I'm excited for her to join us. All right, so we're here to talk about providing students with skills and tools. By the way, I'm reading a script. They make me do that because I will go off script. I'm going to try really hard to sound present and like this is just coming off the top of my head. But this is by design because I just will not shut up. So I'm gonna stick to script. And what they have written here for me is we're all familiar with the moment in May when we see our seniors in caps and gowns. We see the college acceptance letters walk and we think mission accomplished. But as we know, too many of our students walk across the stage where the path actually begins and not where it ends. So today isn't about celebrating acceptances. It's about ensuring students actually enroll, persist in their chosen pathway, and ultimately graduate or complete their credentialing track. So it's all about acceptance, yes, but enrollment, persistence, and graduation, or program completion, whatever the post-secondary pathway is. So first, let's get a quick pulse on the room. So please look at your screen and answer the poll question that's coming up, which is, which of these keeps you up at night most? Regarding your graduating seniors. Again, this is figuring for those of us who have been through it, but we're approaching that time. So for all of you, what's keeping you up at night? Now, while you're filling that out and answering, we support at One Goal students in schools and districts who we partner with across the country. And we're trying to help more students successfully navigate the path from high school into whatever post-secondary pathway that they choose. So through that work, we get to really look closely at the challenges students face and this transition, which is exactly what we'll be discussing today. So the results are in, and it looks like it's kind of a mixed bag. All of the above was a safe bet because it truly is a lot of these that hit us. But it looks like the silence is the number one. The other thing, like kids these days, they like my nieces and nephews. I'm like, when are you going to text me back? It is hard sometimes to keep the communication going. So I'm not surprised at all about the silence thing. Summers are full of distractions, and so anything is, can veer them in the wrong direction. So that one is not a surprise. Financial shock, the systems gap. We're going to get into all of that today. So first, I'm excited to welcome who you've been looking at on your screen, my colleague Kiana Sanders, who's the Director of Post-Secondary Success at One Goal. Kiana, thank you for taking some time out of your busy day to do this webinar with us. From a broader, just like post-secondary success perspective, what do you see as sort of the main barriers and roadblocks that students who end up enrolling, who end up getting accepted but don't ultimately enroll into their post-secondary pathway?
Thank you, Stephen, and welcome to everyone to this webinar. I think from the time I was an advisor first before being promoted to director and senior director, so I've had the unique opportunity to see a lot of the insights up close, being proximate to the work and managing strategies for it. So a lot of the common trends that we see now, beginning from that senior year before they transition to life after high school, a majority of our students who tell us they intend to enroll in a two-year university actually enroll at a lower rate than those who tell us they want to enroll at a four-year. A lot of them missing enrollment items. So these are the things that, that enrollment checklist of like housing deposits, meningitis vaccinations, submitting your test scores and all of those things. So a lot of those things are missing, is which why we try to push to front load those logistics on the front end, and those create additional barriers for our students in persisting. We also have that tried and true financial barrier, that mismatch between the expectations of what it may cost to enroll in a post-secondary program or institution versus their expectations and reality of the cost when they arrive. We see a lot of our challenges in navigating the community college enrollment process over the summer. We also notice a high trend when there is a gap between support from high school to to that first year of enrollment, that gap in that which creates that summer melt, and not having a more persistent or consistent hands-on support that leads to a lot of the melt that we see coming in. Something that is prevalent but not spoken of a lot is the misalignment between aspirations from a student's aspiration and the pathway that they choose, or not having a clear aspiration. So sometimes we may see students tell us, oh, I want to be X, Y, and Z, but their post-secondary pathway doesn't align, and so that creates barriers to their persistence. Something specific, as our panel is from Texas, that we see that's specific to our region, is a systemic and legal gridlock. It's becoming a major trend here in our area with the complex citizenship status, the mixed status family. Ruling from a legal aspect, federal aspect, and the lack of access to federal aid or their inability to produce specific legal or custody documentations. So this creates a hard stop for our students. And so it isn't necessarily a lack of will, it's a lack of a clear legal path forward. And that's becoming more of a barrier for us. We also see what we call like a socio-emotional aspect part of what causes enrollment barriers, depart from like what we call performance fatigue. So sometimes a lot of our students, they pursue college solely to satisfy familial expectations. And so without an intrinsic motivation or a why as to why we're pursuing this next step, this next path, that can sometimes often cause like external pressure of after high school graduation once that's removed. And so that gap period only further exasperates that fatigue of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing next. And lastly, what we call our survival mode gap is where our students who spent high school navigating personal or housing instability, they often lack the emotional and mental bandwidth to plan for a future, and they couldn't see past tomorrow. So for them, acceptance is a milestone, but enrollment feels like an overwhelming logistical mountain and something else that they have to do. So when students melt, the motivation is hard to maintain, and that's where we begin to see like what was supposed to just be a gap semester turns into a year, or we no longer hear from them. And so just trying to navigate all of those things is what we do on our end in the post-secondary side here at One Goal.
Yeah, I just want to pause and name that, your experience is really showing here, Kiana, because you have truly seen it all. The different, all of the different barriers. I think you named the big ones thematically, and we're going to get into the solutions and some of what we've seen and done that's helped and actually worked to help students persist past some of that. So I want to get into that. I also just want to quickly remind folks to use the chat to throw out any questions you have. I'll make sure that we try to get to those. If they're like slightly off topic or something or away from the conversation, we'll try to tie them back in. But feel free just to throw any thoughts you have to our participants in the chat. I also want to bring in Arthur Holman, who is our college and career access specialist at Northbrook High School in Spring Branch ISD down in Houston. Arthur has over a decade of experience advancing college and career readiness, previously leading college counseling work across KIPP, Texas. He's known for building strong college-going cultures, and we know that's true. And he's using data-driven strategies to help students, especially first-gen students, hi, me, reach their post-secondary goals. So Arthur, thank you for joining. You can come off mute. I know you're just like burning to get your answer here in, because I'm sure you have some recent experience. You're working with seniors right now. Tell us currently, like what's a couple of the things you're coming across that are some sort of barriers or things that students are looking towards that graduation stage and they're like, wait, what's next? So talk us through some of what you're seeing.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you all for having me. And also want to echo the same sentiments that Kiana mentioned. I think for me also, some of the things that I'm seeing is the disconnect between the familial expectations and what the student might want to do. I have a student, I can think of a time where I was working with a student, and parents really wanted student to go and be like pre-med. So she had spent all of her application process, like really, really doing it, wanting to go pre-med. And then when I finally got a chance to read her essay was all about like dance and like she was talking about the plie and all these different things in dance. And I was like, why are you trying to go pre-med? And she's like, well, that's what my dad's a vet, all these things. I was like, but you seem like you're really like into dance. And so I really pushed her thinking around like how can you incorporate dance? How can you incorporate a passion? I think speaking to Kiana's point around that intrinsic motivation, like what is the thing that's going to continue to push you through that? Because right now, like you're doing okay in your science classes, but you're really excelling at dance. She was a part of like the dance leader of she's like the captain of the dance team. She did dance like on the side and free time and stuff like that. And I was like, that seems like what your passion is. And so I think one of the things that I'm seeing more and more consistently is like students and that students having a misalignment with what their parents are doing. And so one of the ways that we've combated that, both here at Northbrook and in the past, is how do we incorporate parents in that process a little bit earlier? So, right, instead of waiting until senior year to get them involved, like how are we having conversations with ninth grade parents and talking to them about the importance of, asking your student around like what are their career aspirations, and then sophomore and junior year, and doing those types of things to include parents throughout this process. And so even coming up, we have our junior parent night that's coming up, and we're going to be talking about the SAT and the impacts of SATs and PSATs with our sophomores and freshmen. So just trying to figure out ways to incorporate our parents into those things. That's probably been one of the biggest, along with a lot of the things that Kiana's mentioned.
Yeah, you're already naming some really good solutions, starting sooner with ninth grade, involving the parents, and trying to find some of those disconnects. And it sounds like also some events coming up. So like in-person events, helping students with
Certainly.
important stuff like SAT prep. So we want to get more into the tactics. First, though, let's see where your school stands. So folks here on the webinar today with this next poll. And so that's going to pop up on your screen. The question is, what kind of support does your school currently provide to help students transition between graduation and the start of college? So we know that schools have a lot on their plates. And Arthur, I know when we were running through this, you were interrupted throughout the whole hour that we were chatting, with students coming in and out of your room. So there never is a dull moment. A lot of competing priorities. High school successfully is not an easy talk. So we want to understand that many schools don't have a structured program in place, and that's okay. But moving forward in the discussion, we'll share how we can equip students with the skills and tools they need to transition their post-secondary pathways. So let's see what we got here. It looks like a pretty even split. So we've got folks who do have structured, some support, um, and then some say no support. So it largely ends at graduation. I think that that's actually probably more common than the poll results actually reflect. And then there are others who just aren't even sure. Once students are done, I'm not really sure what happens. Who's staying in touch with them? I know it's not me, or maybe I am in some small way, but not in a structured, systemic way that's actually built into, my role as an educator or my role within the school. I think both of those are pretty common too. So I'm excited to get into this. Before we have Kiana and Arthur break down the how-to, we want to give you a resource, which is the what. In the chat right now, my colleague Becky is going to drop our post-secondary enrollment guide. So this is one of the first things I saw when I was looking at One Goal, researching it as an organization 4.5 years ago before I started working. And gosh, I just wish that I had seen a resource like this when I was applying to, and also when I've supported family members and others into their post-secondary pathway. This isn't a brochure. It's really just like a tactical guide that outlines our 5 steps that you can take to choose a post-secondary path, followed by the 5 steps you'll take to enroll. And it includes links to helpful resources, important deadlines, and tips to success. So we've talked about the challenges students face and what that transition looks like from both school and the student experience. So Kiana, this is exactly the type of work that we're focused on at One Goal, right? And so from your experience supporting schools and post-secondary success initiatives that One Goal engages in with our partners, at what point should schools really start preparing students for the transition to college or other like post-secondary pathway?
Course, here at One Goal, we start in year one. You may hear me say Y1, Y2, Y3. That just indicates our programmatic year. So year one is junior year, year two is senior year three is when we receive them in post-secondary, so that third year of our program. So I know currently right now, knowing that there is a greater need as we grow within our organization, that we're looking to start sooner in actual formal programs, programmatic initiatives in high schools. But right now in year one, we start during their junior year. And so one of the things that I spoke about was that disconnect between what they're passionate about, what their hope, their goal, their interests are, and what they actually do post-secondary. And so we start in year one to go over really their career aspirations. So there's tailored curriculum that we, implement from Canvas side and our DCSs who do that work. But the curriculum for career aspirations and like intrinsic work of like what are your interests, what are your hopes and your what do you like to do and things like that, so that we can connect that to that. And then we start with their best fit list where they figure out what is a complete match or a holistic match of a school that would align with their own personal interests. And so what you see on the screen, like that best fit list includes their financial, socio-emotional fits, best fits, academic match, all of those things to create a well-rounded picture of or options for our students or where they could align. And then we take that work, that groundwork, that foundational work, and then take that and they transition or matriculate into Y2 or their senior year, and then we build upon that. So I really think a lot of it though can be started in their freshman and sophomore year. A lot of that beginning work into preparing for that transition from senior year to that first year of post-secondary in high school. Like to start in their junior year. That's a sweet spot to start, making sure we're ramping up those tests. You hear my phone, that's a student. Texting
Never
me.
a dull moment, Kiana.
Never a dull moment. Making sure
Yep.
that those things are complete so they were ready to go their senior year.
Yep. I think something you're naming and I'm picking up on is the role that purpose plays. And gosh, it almost sounds like cliche, but if you think about, when you have your eye on that prize, all the steps sort of like are secondary to just you achieving that. And so I'm wondering for you, Arthur, like what role sort of purpose plays when you're thinking about students in that junior year. Obviously, like we'd love to start even sooner than that. But we know for One Goal, that's the year that we target as junior, starting in junior year. What role does purpose play in the conversations you're having with students as they're navigating this transition?
Yeah, I think role plays a major part. I think for us, we try to shape role, and in my previous work, we try to shape the role of purpose into being like career. Like, what's the career that you're aspiring for, or what's the job that you're looking for, and then how can we then equate that to a major, and so from there now we can start thinking about, okay, we got the major, we got the career, we got the major. Now how can we start sort of like planning for you to go like and thinking about colleges that have those majors, so utilizing other resources that you have on campus, so whether it be like Big Future or we use Naviance and all the other
Mhm.
options that are out there for folks to do their college research, but really starting with that purpose, right? And being this is the thing that that no matter what, if you could do this job for the rest of your life for free, you would do it. Now, of course, like a lot of kids will look at me like crazy, like I'm not doing anything for free, right? Of course, you want to make money, right? But it's really like, how do we get to that passion? How do we get to that purpose? And then, and the previous story that I mentioned, right? The student that uh, I mentioned earlier, she ultimately like ended up like becoming a dance major. Now she's going to try to use she's going to a liberal arts school, so she's going to try to, figure out a way to like squeeze medicine in there as well, because her parents still want her to do that, but she ultimately wants to figure out a way to like do therapeutical medicine through music, and music and dance. And so like right, so like melding those careers and that passion and that purpose and trying to find one holistic spot. That way, ultimately, students are able to like be able to be themselves, get what they want out of it. Because this is a large investment.
See, I was a performing arts major, so her story really resonates with me. And it is incredible the careers that you can navigate yourself to with a degree with a performing arts degree. Um, so these are some really strong examples. I'm wondering, Kiana, when we're thinking about the work that we do with schools, um, actually, let me back up because something that you were naming, Arthur, is around helping students identify careers, right? Um, and I think one of the big questions we get all the time is, these are students that are, they're so early in their journey. For us to be able to like pin down what they want to do for the rest of their life, like a lot of students are not going to have an answer to that question. But what is the sort of the work that we're going through, Kiana, with our program directors who teach the One Goal class and our other school partners, um, that helps students get to the answering the career question? Because it's hard to be like, well, I want to be a veterinarian. Um, what is the work that goes into sort of helping them define their values, who they are as a person, and their identity? Can you kind of talk us through what some of that looks like?
We have a lot of things built into our curriculum on our platform Canvas that are broken up into modules that focus on different areas for different zones at different times of the year. And so they include those things of which we're speaking to Art and Stephen, of like what are your own personal, beliefs or desires, what are your own interests, and then there's some type of programming or work that is tied into it. So it's not just like I'm taking an assessment to retain head knowledge of like, oh, I'm gifted in this area, but how can we connect that? Sometimes when we go into the classrooms, we'll see projects on the walls of where students took what they did in our curriculum of like identifying like this is what I'm passionate about, these are my interests, and then how they connect that to a major or a career.
A
And I
career.
think that's important for them, and especially to see it displayed because we'll have students that tell us like, oh, I really love doing X, Y, and Z, but they're not sure what that translates to, whether that's a major or whether that's a career. And so going back to that, the original question of like, when should we get started? The sooner the better. Because as Art can, testify to what I've testified to from an advisor to where I am now, when we start with him or we start in like the summer after graduating high school, that's often too late. And so we're trying to like scramble to the finish line or pick up the pieces to figure it out. But the what we have in place right now in their junior year of identifying that helps us along the way when we get to their senior year and Y2 of figuring out, okay, now I know what I'm interested in a career where I want to go. For instance, similar to art student, my grandmother was heavily pushing, you need to be a doctor. We need a family doctor, and that's what I want you to do. And so all of my acceptances were to a pre-med program. Then I took a sociology class and fell in love with social deviance and all of those things. And unbeknownst to grandmother, I switched my major to criminal justice. And so, but what she wanted and my own personal plan did not align. And so I take my own lived experience and share that with our students. And also I tell them, remind them that you don't have to have it all figured out. At my big age, I am still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And so we often bounce ideas off of each other. And so just helping them along the way of connecting the dots between their interests and career goals and majors.
I also love that the anecdote about the artwork that was showing careers and things. I think like visualization is such a really strong tool for helping kids identify pathways and connect their values to majors and careers, or other like credentialed pathways. Might be cosmetology, or it might be one of these trade pathways. So yeah, I think that visualization is so important, especially early on. And I love the idea of just like jump starting the career exploration thing. I think we take for granted how much kids think about their futures. And sometimes all it takes is just asking them some questions. Before we continue to more strategies that you can implement at your school, we want to know if you want to stay connected with One Goal. So that's what one of the reasons we're here today. We want to make sure that folks know who we are. And if you're interested in partnering with us or learning some more solutions for how to advance college and career advising and support at your school, it's all about advising. We really think that advising is the linchpin to helping students be successful in their post-secondary pathways. One number we throw out all the time is that students only get about 38 minutes of college and career advising each year of high school, which just isn't enough to plan your entire future. When we talked about all the barriers that students are facing, leading into just enrolling into some kind of post-secondary pathway, it takes more than a few minutes of high school to get us there. So that's one goal's whole purpose and our mission. So if you're interested in learning more, please click yes, and we'll be sure to follow up with you. So we can move on. Again, using the Q&A, Becky threw out just as a reminder, I will be looking at that to make sure that we get to your questions. But first I want to bring Arthur in. What is just like one small change? Say I'm a counselor or a school leader sitting on this webinar today that I can make to really have a big impact on students and actually getting them to that enrollment day one.
One small change. Oh, wow. That's a very thought-provoking question. It's also a very hard one because I think it all depends on the type of change you are looking for, right? I think where I've seen the most success is where students are able to get the support that they need in order to be able to be their best selves. So by that I mean smaller counselor to student ratios, right? I think having like right now currently I am 1 to 460. It's a lot of kids and it's just one me. So I think where possible that. I also think about creating spaces for students to like just talk and be themselves. So often like in this counseling space, like we just have to kind of like just go, 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 go. Because so much needs to be done in such a small amount of time. But I think where possible, where we can create space for students to like have conversations with them, with you as the counselor, but also with other students. So that way they're able to be able to socialize and be able to talk about the different aspects of their life. Because I think that helps in terms of like ultimately when your students are writing those essays about themselves, right, they're able to like they've already been able or gotten used to like talking about themselves. I think that's one of the hardest things is like getting students to like get that from there. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Um, Kiana, what advice do you have for the folks out there that are really grasping for some answers as to some steps? And maybe we'll expand it beyond just like one thing. What's a couple of things that someone can implement today?
Or I think we need to make a shift from like admissions focus. A lot of times it's like we got them there, great job, cool. But we need to move from admissions focus to transition focus because admissions is
Mindset.
just the first. I'm sorry.
I just said it's a mindset
Oh,
shift.
yeah,
Sorry.
mindset, right? So we got to get them from not just the starting line, but through, because there's work to do after you get the congratulatory email. I think also something that I do in my role as a senior director is looking at the data. So if you have data accessible to you, that's how I build my strategies for quarters, for months, for semesters. So reviewing the data to identify gaps and trends that point to which students might need a higher touch point. So for examples, we would see higher melts at specific post-secondary institutions. If you have a pocket of your graduating seniors who you know are going to this institution, but also you see a higher percentage of melt there, that may be a flag to like, let's make sure that we prioritize this group of fellows, figure out why there was such a great melt, and see if we can mitigate melt for this upcoming graduating class. College, was the community college enrollment that tends to be a consistent barrier with trying to get them in the door and all of those steps. And then also, I think we need to make sure that we also prioritize fellows who are interested in trade pathways. So we have students who say, like, I just want to do cosmetology or be a phlebotomist or HVAC, but they're being pointed to a 2-year, 4-year, and that's not what they've articulated. And so that's something to make sure that we also align with students' own passions and interests, that they are in the driver's seat to support them. I think as we saw from the very first poll, one of the first polls when we asked about like what supports do we have, do schools or our guests here have in place. So I think it will be helpful when you hear arts ratio 1 to 4 or something. That's probably typical across multiple high schools to invest in training and support for not only high school counselors, but other teachers and adults in the buildings, that they have like a baseline understanding and how they can show up as an advisor and work in post-sec or career focused conversations across various classrooms so it doesn't fall only on one person in the building. That's a lot for one person to be able to manage and handle and catch everything. So having multiple people, that's where we leverage our program directors, where they can assist the college counselors on their high school campus with mitigating some of the melts and catching flags and being able to support students along the way. And I think a big one is what we've already mentioned is making sure that students can share their why behind their intended enrollment option, and that it aligns most out of quality. Like, can they articulate their passion, their purpose, and their plan? Can they articulate, does it match with their personal fit, academic match? Are there completion supports at that school, and is it a financial fit? And I think that is helpful. Something else that you can do, and may call it the shameless plug, is like schools can't do it alone. So partnering with a type of college access or persistence organization like One Goal, that will allow for a warm handoff where students have a consistent person or organization through high school, through the summer, and especially in that first year post graduation to help with their enrollment and persistence as well.
Yeah. You were mentioning the role of program directors. So I think we mentioned earlier, but at One Goal, our program directors are the people that teach the One Goal class. So it's a credit bearing class that you take. And the idea is that, you teach science or PE or Spanish, but you have on your schedule, a block that is One Goal. And then that's a class that's dedicated solely to college and career advising. And like you were saying, career exploration, and then actually in their senior year, the minutia of applying to and taking all the steps to get them into some kind of post-secondary pathway. So it's a whole class dedicated to just that. But really the concept behind it is expanding who's responsible in the school for all of this advising work. So, it's not just one person. It doesn't just rely on the counseling team or the career center staff, or an administrator. It's really diversified across the school, and making sure that like more folks within adults working in the school are tasked with this as part of their job. And so that's a really structural change in a lot of schools, but we've seen that it's really helpful in helping that more students actually enroll and persist and graduate, which is what we're talking about. So um, the one thing you were also naming, I lost my train of thought as I got into my little soapbox. Um, I also think we might be having Journey joining us here in a second, which I'm excited to have her join. We did have a question actually in our Q&A from Birdiana, which, by the way, Birdiana, I love your name. What a cool name. Birdiana Rodriguez says that she supports students statewide in Arizona, which poses some challenges with having to operate virtually. Yeah, so that's something that we see a lot. Students scatter to the four winds. Arthur, I'm sure that, within this class that you're working in with right now, you've got students that are going to be going outside of Texas or to different counties and different areas of the state, which Texas is a big state. So I guess what are some tactics, and I'll have both of you answer this, for just staying in touch with students and making sure that they're hitting those milestones and that you're able to like maintain a meaningful relationship with them after they've left the high school.
Wow. That's a good on you, Miss Rodriguez, for your work in terms of meeting with students virtually, because it is hard for me to find the students who are in the actual building that I work in. So for me, I think finding ways to meet students where they are as much as possible. So creating as many opportunities for communication, I would say. Like, do they respond better to one form of communication versus other? I think here at Northbrook, I am doing my best to get my students bought into the idea of checking their email as often as possible, because as they begin to transition outside of high school, not everything will be a text message. And so trying to get them to understand, like, hey, you should be checking your emails periodically. If there is a point of contact that they respond to more favorably than me, right? So if there's a teacher that I know that, my son's name is Adrian. If I know that Adrian responds to Mr. Barker more than me, hey, Mr. Barker, have you talked to Adrian? I'm really working with him on this. Can you just get him to finish this one step, right? And so that way we can slowly start to get Adrian bought in and getting reeling him back in. I think it's really to mention, or to go back to what we talked about in the beginning, like that silence is, it's easy for us to assume that, yeah, everything is going well with the silence, but sometimes that silence can be just students just, slowly giving up. And so creating opportunities and spaces for students to understand that, hey, I just want to be a lifeline for you, and not, I'm not just here to, badger you about, these different tasks or things like that. I just really want to make sure that you have what you need. And if you do, great. And if you don't, like, this is where I'm just a sort of like a whiteboard to try to like help you figure things out.
I love all those options. And it looks like we were just joined by Journey. Hi, Journey. I'll bring you in here in a second just to catch you up. We've been talking about a lot of the barriers that a lot of students face in terms of getting from their high school graduation stage to actually starting day one in their post-secondary pathway. So Arthur and Kiana have been giving us a lot of naming a lot of those barriers and talking through some of the solutions. I'll give you a quick sec to kind of catch your breath. I know that you've been running around today, so we'll bring you into the convo here in just a second. But I want to give Kiana a chance to answer the question about remote support for students, and what's some of the tactics we're using here at One Goal to ensure that that we're able to stay in touch with students, and that they're actually like getting the messages we're sending out.
For remote support, hey Journey. Bias, she was one of my students as her advisor, so it's always a pleasure to see her. She is thriving, and I'm super proud of her. That's not your question, Stephen. Your question was remote support, and so one of the things that's something we're leaning into as our organization is scaling, we're growing, and so we're leaning into a hybrid approach of balancing that direct advisor support versus virtual support. So we use things like right now what we call our Y2 to Y3 handoff presentations, where we typically have gone into classrooms to give a live facilitated presentation to prepare that transition. Well, because we've grown so much, we proximately cannot get to all of our high schools. So now we're actually going to pivot, and we are going to conduct the first region in our organization to do so, a webinar style type presentation. So it'll be live like this, a webinar where I've had to create groups so that it's still smaller ratios. So there's still that relational piece, because I'm known as the relational advisor person. I'm really big on relationships with my students, and they know that. And so I don't want to be 1 to 800. And we have 32 cohorts in there, and it just seems like I'm just at a college presentation. So making smaller cohort sizes, but also mixing that with some of them who need extra TLC. We're going to show up in person because we want to provide that needed support and meeting them where they are. As Art said, we also have a chat bot. As we know, some of our students, like I had students like, I rather FaceTime you, Miss Sanders. cool, just make sure my hair is done today. Or texting them, or we use our chatbot platform where we are able to send out nudges and resources and reminders. We just did a rodeo. We're in Houston, so we have a big Houston Livestock Show rodeo that's really big. So we did a whole campaign where we gave away rodeo tickets and a carnival pack. But we did that through our chatbot system, and that was a great success. So being able to use that to still, and I think the continual nudges of like, hey, we're here, here's resources. Sometimes our messages are just socio-emotional, like, hey, you can do it. It's tough right now. How are you? Let us know how you feel. Like finals are coming up. I think our advisor Emily Buss is on here. She is collecting videos from former PDs or program directors or the teachers to send out encouraging messages to our students via our chatbot platform of like, hey, finals are coming. Stop procrastinating. We're proud of you. So using different modes of communication to help when we're not proximate to our students has been a hodgepodge of things that work to meet students where they are.
We actually had a whole webinar on this very topic, on supporting students remotely, and it was actually focused on our hybrid approach here. So, it's one thing I think that schools should be thinking about exploring is there is the human element, and that's not going to go away. We know that's the most successful way to support students, but there's also all these great new tools now through these chatbots. That organizations like One Goal are using to nudge students with prompts that are targeted to them in their specific contexts. And then that is actually a lead gen for us to be able to know this student might need some help. And so they can reply to that chatbot, and that triggers, getting to talk to a real person. Journey, I see you nodding along. It sounds like you might have used that maybe a couple of times, but I want to bring you on. Journey Morgan is a One Goal alum and junior at Texas State University. Journey serves as a mentor supporting other students in their path to college, which is so awesome. She's passionate about advocacy and currently studying criminal justice, plans to earn a law degree, which we love to see, and become a practicing attorney. So, Journey, thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see you. Um,
You guys for having me. Sorry about my tardiness. I am a college student, so
yeah,
had to go work, take my apron off, put the nice shirt on, and get in front of the camera. So yeah, just balancing.
we we primed everyone on the webinar. They knew
Yeah.
that you were up against a lot today. So look, I want to hear your perspective. So as someone who not so recently, you're in your junior year, but you have gone
hmm
through this process more recently than probably a lot of people on this call.
Yeah.
So after you were accepted into college, what were some of the steps or the moments that felt confusing or stressful during that transition?
If I'm being honest, I would say the whole thing. As a first generation student, Miss Sanders can tell you, I was like, okay, guys, this is not gonna work. I was pulling up financial and I was like, ooh, that's a lot. So FAFSA was one, getting my parents to understand what I didn't quite understand was one, but like my program director, she stepped in many times, like, hey, like she needs you to do this for her so she can be able to go to college. Figuring out how to apply to scholarships, like what was a good scholarship essay, those type of things was like hard to figure out on your own. So Wongo was there to help me and support me in those ways. Or like just the simple things like dorm supplies, school supplies, things to decorate your dorm so you can feel at home when you're so far away from family. So those things I had to figure out along the way that Wongo kind of stood in and helped. Like for example, the Wongo grant, like that took care of my dorm supplies and my dorm decorations. It even got me this computer I'm on today. So like I still use the things that Wongo gave me. So like from my perspective, like Wongo was a good helping hand in that situation because I would be like so lost without it. Like I'd be like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah, yeah. The grant is such an important element of this, which isn't, it's something that every student can access.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like I guess what did you use the grant money for? Do you remember?
I know my first grant was for this laptop.
Oh, cool.
I don't have a computer. I have an iPad. I need something to take my test on. Some students don't really know that it's not really good just to come with Apple products. Some professors would be like, nope, not on my exam. So yeah, I needed a computer with a webcam, and they hooked me right on up. Yeah, so things like that, and like even like you can use it for your rent. So like if you pay your rent, you can send it like, hey, I paid rent, and they'll help you out with that back. So it's certain things that you can use it for that is really helpful for.
So once you got into your, your post-secondary journey, who was connecting with you and like checking in with you and making sure that you were still, hitting all your milestones? Was it a mix of family? Was it peers that from high school that maybe were like went to another school?
Mhm.
Who was kind of holding you accountable and making sure that you had everything you need?
So one goal.
Okay.
So Miss Sanders was really there, and then like later on, it turned to Miss Emily. I forget her last name sometimes. So Miss Sanders was like, she can tell you like she's more like a down to earth advisor. Like she'll call you and be like, hey. How are you doing? Like, you want to talk about your emotions, your feelings, like what's going on? She always was checking on my mental. I used to be like, I want to go home. Like, I feel sad here. There's nothing to do. She tells me, hey, maybe you should get out, join some orgs. Like, put your foot out the door, like do something. Don't sit in the dorm all day, which is like things that helped me because like even you can talk to your mom all day, but your mom would just give you like encouragement. You got this. Like she'd be like, girl, you got this. What are you talking about? My mom was like, she doesn't really do the sappy stuff. She's like, hey, go get that degree, girl. So Miss Sanders was like somebody that can like sit down with me and actually talk about the emotions, like held it out with me. And like even though like she was far, she still knew all the answers for me. So I could call home, but they don't know all the answers. Miss Sanders knew all the answers when it came to college things. Yeah.
We're getting a lot of questions for around, what the folks in the high school can do to
hmm
support students. But I want to ask all the panelists. There's a question in the chat. Ideas around what colleges and universities can do to help this transition too. So, Kiana, what are you seeing? I know we have new partnerships in Texas. We just formed a new partnership with Texas State with TSU. And so what kinds of supports are colleges doing to help students, I guess, through that summer period, before they even get to the campus? What are we seeing be successful?
I think that's where the partnership, mommy, I never know.
Oh no, we can
Um,
hear you. Yeah.
all right, that's where the partnership is going to come into play, in which we see, adds to the success of our students matriculating from high school to post-secondary institutions, having aggressive summer bridge programs. A lot of our summer bridge, if you're not familiar, that's that period when summertime where students can go to college essentially early and see what it's like, and they can help them with those fundamental courses, get prepped and ready to go for when a college actually starts. So we're seeing an uptick in like the number of post-sec institutions implementing summer bridge programs, usually covered by their FAFSA or it's free. Also, our student support here in Texas, we call them SSPs or student support programs. And I have to shout out Zachary Marks Quo, who's our senior director of innovation, who works with our peer mentor program, but then also he helps with a lot of our partnerships. And so he makes sure that where we have a lot of students that matriculate in partnership, we do it together. Like, hey, we have a lot of students that go to these universities. What student support programs on that college campus will be a benefit for our students so that we can get that resource and that information to our students. And so I think it will be beneficial for our post-sec institutions to reach back. A lot of times they wait to receive, but they can like, hey, who's coming here? And then we got you from when you get here, but reaching back, whether that's also Siobhan Williams, who has set up partnerships with HCC and Lone Star, who they make sure that they go in, like they'll bring reps to the school. At this community college, we have a lot of from this high school go to that particular campus. Can we get someone to come to this high school and help with the enrollment items and matriculation steps? And so I think when the post-sec institutions reach back to help in partnership with the high school, we see a greater success of them actually completing and matriculating to start. And we see a downsize or degrading the amount of summer melts that we have.
Another big one, colleges and universities can directly fund college tours, because I know that's a huge barrier. Arthur, I see you nodding. It is so expensive to get a bunch of kids on a bus and bring them out. But I think like if we're able to identify, if TSU or Houston University can identify which students are interested at the various schools to organize some way to, fund that to get students to the school. Because we know that college campuses make a huge, or college visits make a huge difference in ensuring that students actually enroll. Again, it's about visualizing and helping them see, oh, I could see myself here. Um, We are just about at time, y'all. This just kind of flew by. Journey, I wish we got a little bit more time with you, but I'm so glad you were able to make an appearance. We've got just like some quick, like last minute questions here. So, I guess, Arthur, um, what is something, what and I don't want to throw Northbrook under the bus, but like, what is something that would make your job even easier, in terms of support from leadership at the district, and ensuring that you have the resources you need to be able to support students
Yeah,
through the
sure.
transition.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, here having everybody being all bought in to what we believe is what we want to be true for students. So here at Spring Branch, we're T24, so trade 2 year, 4 year. We want to make sure our students are ready for whatever options are available to them. And so having our staff bought into that and having them understand that, yes, I may be the college and career access specialist, but you as a staff member here at our school have an obligation to ensure that that student is ready no matter what option they choose to pick come senior year. And I think to answer the other question that we talked about in terms of what could colleges and universities do, I think if there can be in the perfect world, I would just have like one to two people that high schools can call on to ask like specific questions or that we can point students to. I think where I'm seeing where a lot of my students are getting like bogged down is like they're having to go to a number of different offices to get their questions answered. So if there was just like one or two people, we would definitely love that. And where I've seen it be successful is where um partnerships where high schools and college and universities have an agreed upon MOU in place where I can say like there's one person in this department that I know I can call for my students and they can be able to like I can be able to point my students to that person when they get on campus. Those are the things that I think would make my life a little bit easier. Not so much easier, but a
Yeah.
little bit easier.
Yeah. And they're not small things, but and what you're naming feel like obvious things, right? But it's just a matter of resourcing it and ensuring that people have the capacity to make it happen. Um, Kiana, what's like just like another quick thing that folks on the call today can take with them in terms of, we're coming to the end of the school year. What are just like two or three things that they need to be thinking about, especially for their seniors, to like make sure that those boxes that we mentioned at the top are really being checked off?
For sure, tapping into that partnership to support their ability to bridge the gap, especially if your school doesn't have a summer support. We have summer supports here at One Goal where we intentionally call specific students during the summer to make sure they're not falling between the gaps. I'd also say ensure that before graduation, and during the summer, as students are actually enrolling, that they know that they're not doing this alone, and that they have caring adults who they could look to for support or mentorship or advice, or try to do the front loading of logistics before graduation, to set them up for as great a success as possible, that they don't have many things to navigate or many barriers or hurdles to overcome. I think also important before graduation that every student should graduate with not just a plan A, but then they have a fully vetted plan B. I was very much put all my eggs in one basket. Journey moved to tears when you were talking. When I met Journey at Davis High School, Journey didn't have plan the first. Or every time I came back to her high school, she had three different plans. But working on something every time I went there and to see where she is now, my heart is just bursting with joy and cup
Me
overflowing.
too. And I
Um,
want to make sure that Journey gets the last word here because
yeah, so I will say that and being able
got
to
about
give
30
it. Yeah.
seconds left. So really quickly, and I mean, I love all of that. There was a quick question that someone asked about how to partner with One Goal and what the cost is to partner. We'll throw a link in to how to partner with One Goal from our website. So check that out. And then also before I head over to onegoal.org. You can follow us on socials. Lots of really helpful resources that we share on our channels that are just free. There's also links to all of our past webinars, so you can find that on there as well. Journey, what's like something that you wish you knew before you like started? Like maybe you were in high school. Like, what's one quick thing you're just like, I just wish that someone told me that.
One thing I wish that I knew is that even if like your plan changes, so say I used to want to go to LSU, so when that plan changed, I was like, okay, so what do I do now? Just always have multiple options. Know that if you can't go to one school, that doesn't mean your goals are over or your dream career is over. You can reroute, and Lone Star or HTC is always an option. So don't just give up once one thing fails, if that makes sense.
Well, it's not the last you're going to hear from Journey, you all. So keep an eye out for this one. She's going places, and we're so excited to have all of you join us today on the webinar. And please, again, follow us everywhere you can, and we'll be sharing this with you, the recording. And for all you folks that signed up, you'll get a link in your email. And yeah, stay in touch with us. And thanks so much to all of our panelists, and we'll see you next time. We'll be here in April for our next webinar.